That is an awful poster.
You're not convinced, huh?
I'm not at all.
Actually, I was going to try to make a joke out of it and have a back, like you can do a background screen in Zoom here and just have a picture of you and then end that and have this behind it. It was going to be really funny, but I couldn't make the background screen work because my Mac is from 2014 and the processor's too old.
All right.
Yeah. So we don't need to make this official Fisher marketing, but in effect, it's going to be Fisher marketing because you've been on Fisher for so long.
I don't think I actually know their terms for, their various flexes, and so.
I do. I can provide technical info.
Okay.
The reason we have two of us is that I can provide technical info and you can provide your experience and talk about being a ski racer. You don't have to know anything about skis. It's not your job.
No.
Okay. Recognize these?
I do recognize those.
You left these with me a few years ago, and I did grind them.
You did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they even had the little bird tag.
At the time, you told me that you weren't going to do it because there was no good marketing purpose for it. It's like
you just found it.
Yeah. Those were the first pair of skis that were, to use the top of the line that I bought. So I think when I was 14, I was still racing on a pair of Nigel White Stars. I was their third owner, and I snapped the tip in some deep powder. And so I had to get some new skis for the next race. And the closest ski shop was LaHoots in Lincoln, New Hampshire, and they had those because they were on half off.
Oh, good deal.
And then I went on to win my first junior national championship. I actually won the J2 Nordic Combined National Championship and the cross country J2 National Championship in the same month on those skis.
All right. So cross country, that was in Rumford.
That was in Rumford.
I was there. I remember.
That was when I beat Sean Gallagher by 1/10 of a second.
How was I both places? I must have been on skis because I have a picture of you coming out after the road crossing in the start, but then I got to High School Hill, so the course must have dropped down.
Right. You used to have a video of me going up that hill. I don't know if you still.
Yeah, I had to look. I don't know that I have it. Sean jump skated the bottom half of High School Hill and looked impressive, but by the time he got to that hump, he had pretty much run out of steam, and there's about half the hill left after that.
Right. Well, the old hump before they sheared the top off of it.
Right. Yeah. So when we had Eastern Cups there this year, I pointed out the hill to some of the kids and told them that was your first national championship.
Okay.
And not to hop skate the bottom of it.
I actually skied a really controlled race on that day.
Yeah, I looked at it. It was a good race.
I was like 15 seconds down at the bottom after the 2K of downhill at the start. I have a weird ability to pretty much remember every race that I've ever done in detail.
Do you remember that ski?
882. So that's the that's the kind of softer. Well, it's got the top camber. It's almost Rosignol like.
Yeah, it's a 187 with a really high resting camber and a really soft finish.
That's the word I was looking for. High resting camber.
Yeah.
And I raced that in Beta Stolen.
Yep.
In the opening Norwegian Cups there. And I raced that in a raging blizzard to 5th place. And I think I got beat by 2 Russians, Legov and probably Villajanin that day. So I would have been on the podium again if it wasn't for those friggin' dopers. But I do remember that ski climbed amazing that day. It felt awesome everywhere. But I really had to work it on the downhills. Anytime I 2-footed it, it was just dying. So I basically, for 15K, was constantly skating.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the point of that ski, you remember the reason I gave it to you, it's only a 187. And it's a special construction. It's worth noting, every company makes special constructions for racers. And we're showing some of those. This one is what Fisher called a 300 construction, stamped on the tip. The ski's broken, so it's taped back together. But it says 300 there. That's what that high resting camber was about. And we gave that to you because we made a big change in your skate technique that year. Do you remember?
So I had the second compartment surgery in 2009. And then that was 2010.
Yep.
I got fifth in both races at the Norwegian opening Beto.
Yep.
And then I got fourth in Kusamo and
seventh in
Davos, which isn't my best placing, but is probably the best skate race I ever had.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is. And that was the year when we focused on a wider stance and way higher tempo and just constant motion edge to edge. And you remember, you went down to New Zealand for training camp, and I made you ski on those skis in training every day, because the only way to get anything out of them was just to be moving on them and to be light and focus on release and not try to power them. And we made you follow Liz Steven in every skate session and match her tempo.
It wasn't every session. It was every interval session that she did.
Oh, it was every interval session. Okay.
So I would follow her behind her in every interval session.
Yeah.
I remember Christina Strandberg was very confused what was happening.
I bet everyone was.
Yeah.
The idea.
But I was trying to get that tempo and the ski lighter. I had a unique way of skating for many years, and it was very, very just loaded the legs a lot.
Yeah, really muscular and powerful.
I mean, it worked in a lot of circumstances, but it wasn't gonna get me to the level I wanted. So
it was interesting that Davos race was so good, and that your skating responded really well to that. And I felt like after that, we were always trying to find the right balance between that tempo and active movement and just your ability to generate massive amounts of power and your athleticism, which would allow you to glide a long time on the ski. I mean, you've got really good balance still, and you can stay on that ski as long as you want. And I think it's seductive, but a little creates a bad muscle environment when you apply power through this.
So in my best skate races, I would force myself to start with light, high tempo, light leg work, and then if it was a 15K, after I went into the last 5K lap, at that point I would allow myself to go back into the power mode.
Right. Yep.
And that worked really well.
So this was a 2010 production. Remember that one?
I do. 570.
So that was one of the first 115 skis, which is
570. I raced that a lot.
You raced that a lot, and in particular, I think you had quite a good race in the Cortina toe block stage of Tour de Ski on this pair.
I did. I also had was it 083 that was the mate to that? I raced one of those in Kusamo.
That was 083.
And that actually might have been the best skate race I ever had, except that I broke a pole with 1K to go, or with 2K to go. But that race was really quite good.
That was a mini tour, right?
That was a mini tour. I think I ended up 12th overall, and if I hadn't broken the pole, I could have been fighting for a top 6. I broke it going through the stadium on the last lap.
Right. So that was
2.5K laps.
That was 2011.
That was 2011.
Okay.
That was 2011 because that was the first time they did the mini tour. In 2010, it was still just a standalone sprint and a standalone 15K every year.
Okay.
Then they started doing the mini tour. and I was 7th the first day out, and then ended up 12th on the thing. But I ended up skiing through the entire stadium, and it is a big stadium with one pole.
Right. So it was the year before then that you used this pair? This is classic now.
That was and I still think that might have been the best race I ever skied.
Yeah. It was real good.
So that was the 2010 season. It was actually the fall of 2009. I was 12 seconds, I think, from the win,
right?
Which was Petter Northug, and then those two friggin' doping Russians, Legov and Villajan again, and then it was me, and I was like maybe 1/10 of a second in front of Sumbi.
Yep.
And those skis were amazing, and I know those are another weird flex. They're old school. They're kind of designed to be more like a 90s ski, right?
They are the camber that Fisher used before the 812 camber came along.
Right.
So the high point's pretty far back under the foot, and it just doesn't have that forward camber in it, and it's quite collected underfoot. And this one, do you remember that it broke actually, and it got repaired twice? Was it?
Yeah, because Fisher had nothing to replace it with, so they're like, "Oh, that ski's done," and then they'd see what it actually was, and they'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna have to try to fix that because we can't replace it."
Yeah.
I think after the second repair, it was never quite the same.
It just wasn't as strong.
I went through a string of like trying to protect my best skis in the bag, and it just did not matter. I could tape them in the middle of a 6-pack, and my best pair would get just slaughtered in the airport.
Yep.
And it happened over and over again.
Yep.
Remember, I had that Yoki, my Swedish tech in Oslo.
Yep.
Picking those amazing skis, classic skis for the 30K pursuit.
Yep.
I was not in shape, and I just glided back into the pack so many times on those skis.
Yeah.
And then they blew the sidewall out, coming back to the U.S. somehow. The only pair in a pack of 20 skis. I don't understand. They were not on the edge.
Yeah.
And that just kept happening to that pair too.
Yeah. Travel damage, it didn't break skiing.
No, it's always travel damage. I don't think I have never broken a good pair of race skis while I'm training, while I'm skiing. Yeah. It's always in travel. But I just remember it was a pretty straightforward day. Mm-hmm. No one had particularly bad or good skis that day, but I was just going straight up every hill on Kusumo, which
elevator shafts.
Yeah. And the glide was as good as anyone I was skiing around. I had fantastic skis that day.
Well, particularly on the downhills, I think the place these skis failed to deliver top-end speed was double pole.
Yeah, but at that point, double pole wasn't – the technique and emphasis on double pole hadn't changed yet.
Yeah.
Like I kind of used the same double pole technique from 2002 through 2014, and somewhere in 2012, 2013, people started double pulling entire races, and the technique and the power generated just changed.
Everything changed. Yep.
That is the Liebrecht 2009.
Yeah. Zeros.
That was just a nightmare prep for the race. I remember once again, Yoki really wanted to use wax that day. He kept on adjusting, and he was a master with wax. He was just amazing. He went on to be Johan Olsen's wax tech, and he got my skis dialed in pretty good. But while he was working, Peter Johansson went in and scraped those skis off, put something on them, and brought them out and had me test them. And I was just like, oh my God, these work so well. And then Yoki and I had a decision, and it was like 10 minutes before the race, and we're just standing there, and the entire wax team ended up standing in a circle. Oleg got pissed at Yoki and was like, just make a decision, of course. And finally, to Pete Vordenberg's credit, he just said, I have an opinion. And I said, what? He said, take the Harrys. I said, okay. And I took the Harrys, and they were great. I ended up skiing the first 6K of that race solo. I think Oddbjorn Hjelmeset started 30 seconds behind me that day, and he closed to within 10 of me after the fast section of the course.
Yeah.
And that just destroyed him coming up the big climbs.
Yeah.
I got all 20 seconds back,
yeah.
And I think a lot of that was his ski sucked.
Maybe yeah.
from a kick standpoint. And then when I got to 6K, Lucas Bauer was a lap behind me.
Right.
He was just starting. He was 1K into his race when I was a 6K, and he passed me. And I latched onto him, and I almost blew up because he was going so fast. But when I was in his draft, it was probably 15% easier.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you think that was because of the tracks? And it's not air resistance at that point. Was he just making the tracks faster, or what?
I think he was making the tracks faster for me, for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It was snowing like crazy.
Right.
So big, wet, heavy flakes.
Yeah.
So I think that was happening. But even so, his skis were slightly faster than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was in the draft. You can tell.
Right.
Like, his skis were just a little bit faster, but I was making the kick work better. And whether that was me versus his technique or my skis, I'm not sure.
Well, so this pair, this is interesting because it's the rubberized inlay for the full length. It's essentially a regular production ski made for the broad market. It's not a special ski. It's not a 902 camber, which they started doing. So this is a 2008 production, and this is.
Oh, these are 902.
No, they're not.
No, it's not a 902. I didn't think so.
No. They weren't doing that yet because this was the time frame during which I was testing a bunch of zeros with Fisher up at the Callahan Valley before the Olympics. And the 902 camber is what came out of that testing project. We had them produce all of those prototype zeros for you in the lead up to the games, remember? And we were testing 81L, 90L, 902, different inlays. In the first season, we tested a whole bunch of different inlays. So that B90 inlay was in that test, and they were testing other places.
It was such a shame that the weather was so straightforward in Vancouver.
I know. That would have been so fun if we could have used some of what we learned working with those guys. That was an incredible project.
But I had never seen those skis before the race in 2009. I don't even know where Johansson got them.
They picked them in the fall, so they were in the race department, but they had just grabbed them. They were just, what Fisher calls the F-Series skis, the regular production skis that they distribute in racing. So it was the same with that 083 skate ski. It was a production ski that the race department ordered from General Production and brought in. And so it's not a special World Cup production model. And that's the story with these. So two of your best skis ever have been straight production skis.
Yep. As I recall, too, that day it was Bauer was on the old red skis. So those were like late 90s, early 2000s skis. And that race was in 2009.
Yeah, but I bet he didn't have the rubberized inlay. I bet he had.
Might have been why he wasn't kicking quite as well.
Exactly. So a little faster and not quite as good kick. And I think that inlay is really, what we found was it was really strong kicking in Callahan Valley. It was super slow. But most of the time I've seen zero conditions on race days, you need a lot of kick. You can go out and test by yourself in falling snow in the Pacific Northwest and come up with incredible skis that you'll never use in a race, because in a race you've got a starter every 30 seconds, 3 laps, and you just constant traffic and glaze on the course, and the demand for kick goes really, really high, and it becomes all about, can you kick the zeros? It's not like you're touring through silent woods with 0-degree snow falling. You're in a freaking race environment. It's really, kick is hard to find, and I think that's a big part of the reason that the World Cup wax guys often don't like to use the zero skis, because they're kind of dangerous. When they fall out, they're just, you have nothing.
Right. Yeah. I remember Devin Kershaw talking about like going to the start line with a pair of Harrys. You always feel like you have this little secret. It's like, ooh, Harrys.
Uh-huh.
And in the first K, you either feel really smart or really dumb.
Yeah.
619, 258B.
There's not a great race story for you to talk about.
Those are the skis from Val de Femme you picked up on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Low running, wet hard wax skis.
Yeah, exactly. Really, like, softest skis in your fleet. That was the day when Oleg made a fantastic wax call, and that was Rhodey Violet Extra with the Swix XF30 cover.
Ah, okay.
But we ran these skis with the bindings back, and they're just like a scooting ski. They're super, super soft, and the pocket's way in front of the foot, and really, really soft and immediate. And so that was a ski that you could just kind of like push up the hill as far as you want and then grab, kick, really tacky, soft wax. And the reason I brought that one out was that after that 50K that Olsen won,
yes,
I went like pretty late in the day to the Swedish truck, because Yoki, your old wax tech, is the guy who waxed Olsen that day. And I knocked on the door, and he answered, and there was no one else in there. It was just him cleaning skis. And I was like, Yoki, where did everyone go? And he said, oh, they're celebrating, or something. And he was still there cleaning skis. And so I just, I said, congratulations. And he said, do you want to see them? And he handed me skis. It might have, I don't know. I don't think they were from the same series. They might have been, but they're almost the same. Super, super soft skis.
As I look back on that race in particular, I was on such the wrong skis. I mean, I was on.
We had you on plastic big Clister skis. It was, mind you, it was hot.
It was hot, but the tracks, especially on the largest climb on the backside of the course, was icy the whole day.
Yeah.
And my skis just didn't work there, and I didn't know why.
Right.
I didn't know enough about. It took me way, way too long to learn what type of ski is applicable in certain Clister conditions.
Right. And I think we all just thought it was just going to break to pieces because of the heat.
Right.
It was like, literally, it was t-shirt weather. I think it was Fahrenheit degrees, like had to be in the 50s.
I remember, we had just gotten, I think it was the 664 huge Clister ski, and I'd raced that in the relay.
Yeah.
And I had maybe not the best kick, but probably some of the best glide in that relay.
Yep.
My leg. And so we were excited to use that ski. But I remember when you have a really huge, it's like 1.8, 55, just behemoth of a ski on icy tracks, the front of the pocket just bites.
Right.
I had that for like 3 or 4K on the backside of that course, which happened to be where Olsen decided he was just going to free solo the race. And I don't think my skis would have gone that fast under any circumstances. I wish I had used that pair on that day, knowing that. You never told me that was the ski that Olsen was on.
I didn't know till after.
Yeah, I mean, losing Yoki as a wax tech was just devastating to my
to
myself and my career.
Yeah.
Because I never recovered. I mean, he on a 45th place day, he'd wax me into the top 30, and it's just, we just work together well.
Yeah. And the guy also just was so good with the material, and he was a really quiet leader. I think the team thought that it wouldn't be that hard to work without him. But like even in World Championships 2011, remember he left before the relay, and I ended up doing skis for you and for Hoff and for Tad because they were my two guys to start with. So I was waxing for 3/4 of the team, and without Yoki there was just no direction in the kick testing. Like the whole system broke down, even though he was not really, in charge. He was such a quiet leader. He lent so much sort of structure to the thinking and organization that it was, really,
he was a unique communicator. He liked to say, and there was like 20 different hmms, and you had to learn what each one meant.
Right.
Like a certain tone in the would mean that he could add more kick without it slowing down, but if it was a darker then he's like, no, you got to go on this. We're loaded. So
okay, so this pair I grabbed just so we could talk a little bit about newer stuff. Brand new pair of skis. You might have skied on it like once.
Which ski is that?
This is the ski you raced in Craftsville in the Super Tour.
In the Super Tour, yeah. I had yes. So that's a 90L ski.
Yep.
Slightly softer than my other pair of 90L skis, and I had really great skis that day.
Yeah. It's funny that so 90L is another race construction, and in fact they use that camber in their skin skis because it's got a really long camber arch, so it can carry the skin high and still be soft and collapsible. So it's got this high camber arch with your foot back here, the high points out in front of the foot just a little bit, well, quite a lot actually, and so it's a high and reactive and snappy pocket, and it's a ski that you ski on very well in a lot of conditions because it requires timing and some snap in the stride, and that's.
If you remember that day, I also moved the binding back a spot.
You did, yeah.
Which you were not supportive of initially,
right? It works. Yep.
And I think especially in Clister, I tend to have to ski like I want to ski it like I want to use. I've got, depending on the conditions, you've got to have with hard wax. It's a snappier motion with your kick, and that's the way I like to ski. I like to ski in hard wax, which stinks because we hardly ever ski in hard wax anymore. You never ski in hard wax on the World Cup, it seems.
Right.
And what I've found the last couple of years is that if I put the binding back, it makes me slow my kick a little bit when I'm using Clister. Otherwise, I try to pounce on the ski just like I do when it's extra blue, and it doesn't work.
Well, one of the issues we have for you is that you're not a small fellow, but your feet aren't big. You're like a size 42.
I'm 180 pounds, and I got a size 42 foot. So,
right.
Yeah.
So you move really quickly forward because you start pretty far forward. Like, some of the big dudes with size 14 feet that are hanging off the back of the bindings, they stand so far back. Their neutral position is like way back here. So they're kind of soft on the ski because they're not even on the thing. And it takes a while for them to move forward on the foot. You and Ida Sargent with a size 36 are two people who use the stiffest skis I've ever seen. Ida at 115 pounds needed stronger skis than anyone on the U.S. ski team. Half the time she was using stronger skis than Sadie because because her foot's really small and she stands high on the pocket. And so moving back, it does slow that action down because it means that you roll up onto the front of the pocket.
Okay.
A little later.
But I got to say that you picked me out 4 new pairs of skis this year, and I have probably the best fleet of Fisher skis of anybody I know in this country. And all the skis pretty much beat my old skis this year. Like they did something really right last year.
Well, this is kind of the name of the game with Fisher. I mean, in spite of the fact that some of these specialty skis that we've been looking at stayed in your fleet for quite a while and had some utility, that was because they were kind of unique and outliers. But if we look really at the meat and potatoes of what Fisher produces, 610 skate skis and 902 or 812 classic skis, that's been the story pretty much every time we've added material to your fleet in the last 5 or 6 years, even when you were racing, professionally still. Every time we brought new stuff in, it would beat out the old stuff.
Right.
They've just been making constant steps forward, and we see that at the World Cup level as well, where it becomes almost rare to see last year's skis. Like with the yellow sidewalls, you could spot when people were on last year's skis, and it was like, oh wow, in this race, almost half the field is on last year's skis. 10 years ago, it would have been more rare to see new material on the snow in such high proportion.
Right. I mean, going back to the Salt Lake City Olympics or Val de Femme, man, it was not uncommon at all to see 10-year-old skis on the snow.
Now it's unheard of.
Now, I think, so the last World Championships I was 2015 in Falun. And I'd say half to more than half of the Fisher athletes were on the brand new stuff they got right there at World Champs.
Especially in skating, because they made that change to the skis. They changed the thickness profile on the camber just shortly before World Champs, and those new skis were just a big step forward. From that year, you still have 005 and 007.
Yeah.
This really good race skis.
Right.
That was kind of the start of the new era of skating, and they brought those changes to the production in line. So the skis made after week 12 that year took the same idea for consumers, and they were likewise that much better.
So, I mean, the marketing gimmick that they are using is the waxable sidewall. Do you do anything with that?
No.
You haven't put anything with it.
I don't put anything on there. I might have told you that I did, but
I don't think I ever asked you. So, but I have found that using that material on the sidewall has made them much better for edging and for giving a stronger push.
Yep.
And I've got 3 pairs with that construction, and it's universal across all 3 pairs.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's just me, or do you feel that too?
No, I feel like that's really real too. And we found that also, I don't remember the number on the pair, but you carried a pair of these from prototype production in your fleet.
I'm counting that in my 3 pairs.
Yeah. Right from the outset, it made a significant difference to the kind of precision of the edging feel. You get in really hard icy snow, and I don't know that it's really more secure. It doesn't all of a sudden turn into the sharpest edging ski out there, but the precision and security definitely took a step up, especially in a wide range of average conditions. And it's not even that; it's like the power transmission definitely increased.
And that was the ski I trained on all year. So
yeah,
I have many different levels of training skis. Those were the good snow training skis.
Yeah. They keep upping the ante. They keep doing better things.
Have you seen any difference with the sidewall construction to the way the classic skis work? All I know is that the 2 pairs of classic skis that I got this year were both heavenly to ski on, and I don't know why. So,
not in the way that I work with them, and the production was really limited the 2 times that we were there this year, and I ended up picking more leftover production just because the variety was limited.
Yeah.
I didn't have many to ski on myself this year, so I didn't spend a lot of time on the new ones, on the gliding sidewalls.
Okay.
So I've waxed them and I've worked with them and I've sold them and people are happy with them, but I don't have as much personal experience on those as the skate skis.
Okay.
Well, you should give me something to work with.
Okay.
Probably a little bit of an editing job. That's some good stories.
Yeah.